On a broader scale, even communities thrive when kindness is selective. A neighborhood where people help one another with sincerity becomes strong and safe. A neighborhood where people exploit generosity quickly falls apart. The same principle applies to nations and cultures. Kindness must be rooted in justice, truth, and discernment, or it collapses under the weight of exploitation. The science of selective kindness does not call you to harden your heart, but to sharpen your vision. It is about recognizing that your kindness is like water. Too much water poured on barren ground will only be wasted, but when poured on fertile soil, it produces life. Protecting your heart means learning to see the difference. Neuroscience says your brain thrives when kindness is met with kindness. Psychology says your soul flourishes when boundaries are respected. Spiritual wisdom says love must be guided by truth. All these voices are speaking together, inviting you to live with balance. Think of the people who inspire the world most. They are not the ones who gave endlessly without thought. They are the ones who gave wisely, who learned when to open their hands and when to guard their hearts. They are the mothers who loved fiercely, but also taught discipline. They are the leaders who forgave much, but also confronted injustice. They are the friends who listened deeply, but also spoke truth when it was needed. Their kindness was powerful because it was selective. Kindness is one of the greatest strengths of the human spirit, but it was never meant to be blind. Too often, people grow up believing that being kind means being endlessly available, endlessly forgiving, endlessly giving without pause. But real kindness is not an open door with no locks. Real kindness is a sacred gift, and a sacred gift must be treated with wisdom. There is a saying in ancient texts, "Be as wise as serpents and as harmless as doves," which tells us that kindness without wisdom becomes weakness, while wisdom without kindness becomes cruelty. The balance of both creates a life of depth, strength, and peace. When we look at the life of great thinkers, leaders, and spiritual guides, we see this balance reflected again and again. They were gentle but not soft, patient but not foolish, generous but not blind. Jesus washed the feet of his disciples as an act of humility and love, but he also overturned the tables of money changers when the temple was defiled. That single act shows the world that kindness is not the absence of boundaries or strength. Kindness requires courage, and courage means knowing when to say yes and when to say no. Without that courage, kindness is not pure, is simply appeasement dressed in soft words. A wise life demands that we treat kindness like a lamp we carry into the world. If we place the lamp before people who cherish its light, they walk forward with us, guided and encouraged. If we place the lamp before those who despise it, they will break it, mock it, and leave us in the darkness with no flame left to guide ourselves. This is why living wisely with kindness means knowing that not every heart is prepared to receive it. Sometimes the most powerful act of kindness is restraint. Not silence out of fear, but silence out of wisdom. Not giving because of exhaustion, but choosing not to give because the soil is barren and the seed would be wasted. In psychology, there is evidence that people who know how to regulate kindness, who give wisely, live healthier, more balanced lives. Their stress levels are lower because they are not drained by toxic relationships. Their emotional energy is preserved for the people and causes that truly matter. Their confidence grows because they know their kindness is not being trampled on, and their self-respect deepens because they have drawn invisible lines that say, "This far and no further." On the other hand, those who hand out kindness without thought often face disappointment, resentment, and even bitterness. They expect that kindness will always return in equal measure, and when it doesn't, they feel betrayed. But in truth, the problem is not that kindness is unworthy, but that kindness was never meant to be poured into every cup without considering who drinks from it. When you study the human brain, you discover that kindness lights up regions associated with reward and connection. Oxytocin, the bonding hormone, rises when we give, making us feel good and safe. Yet, repeated betrayal or exploitation rewires the brain toward distrust and fear. The very act of giving, when done unwisely, creates a storm inside the mind that can lead to bitterness. What was once a joy becomes a source of pain. That is why living wisely with kindness is not just about protecting others, it is about protecting your own mind, your own soul, your own heart from the weariness of being used. Think about the seasons. Winter does not apologize for its cold, and summer does not apologize for its heat. Each has its time, and each has its purpose. Kindness is like the sun, but the sun does not shine with equal warmth on every corner of the earth at once. Some places are given more, some less, because balance must be maintained for the earth to thrive. If the sun gave endlessly without wisdom, it would scorch the earth to ashes. If it withheld all light, the earth would freeze. It is in the balance of giving and restraining that life flourishes. This is the same for the human heart. A heart that gives without balance burns out. A heart that withholds without balance grows cold. A heart that chooses wisely when to give and when to hold back creates life, beauty, and meaning. Living wisely with kindness also means recognizing that not everyone who asks deserves. A child who is never corrected will grow reckless. A friend who is never challenged will grow entitled. A loved one who is never told the truth will remain blind. True kindness sometimes looks harsh because it refuses to enable destruction. Saying no can be the highest form of love because it refuses to participate in someone's self-destruction. It is easy to hand out comfort, but it takes courage to hand out truth, and truth delivered with love is the deepest form of kindness that exists. When you look into the stories of people who change lives, you see that their kindness was never weakness. Martin Luther King Jr. spoke with compassion, but carried a fire of justice that could not be silenced. Mother Teresa held the dying with tenderness, but she also stood firm against systems of neglect that allowed them to suffer in the first place. Their kindness was fierce, wise, and unshakable. They knew when to cradle and when to confront. That balance made their kindness powerful enough to shift nations and awaken hearts. On a personal level, each person must decide how to carry kindness in daily life. In families, kindness is not simply doing everything others demand, but creating a home where respect and love are mutual. In friendships, kindness is not letting others drain your energy without ever pouring back into you, but choosing relationships that grow you as much as you grow them. In workplaces, kindness is not letting others walk over your time and effort, but setting limits that say your dignity matters. In society, kindness is not ignoring injustice for the sake of peace, but standing boldly against what destroys humanity, even when it costs you. There's a saying that every act of kindness plants a seed in eternity, but seeds must be placed in fertile ground. If you pour them on stone, they wither, and your labor bears no fruit. Living wisely with kindness means searching for soil that can nurture growth, relationships that reflect mutual respect, and moments that truly matter. It is not about counting how much you give, but about noticing where your giving makes a difference. At times, you may fear that holding back kindness makes you unloving. This is not true. Holding back kindness from those who abuse it is not cruelty, it is clarity. It is choosing to honor the value of kindness so deeply that you refuse to let it be wasted. It is an act of reverence toward your own soul. The divine call is not to throw pearls before swine, but to walk with discernment, to protect what is sacred, and to live in truth. The world will try to tell you that being kind means being endlessly available, but wisdom whispers a deeper truth. Kindness is strongest when it is rare enough to be treasured and wise enough to be respected. If you give it to everyone without pause, people will grow numb to its value. But when you give it with intention, people feel its power, and it lingers in their memory like a blessing. To live wisely with kindness is to live with strength. It is to let your heart remain tender without letting it be trampled. It is to extend love without losing self-respect. It is to give freely but not foolishly. And when you find this balance, your kindness will not only heal others, it will heal you. It will not only light up the world, it will preserve your flame so you never run out of warmth. So guard your kindness like treasure, share it like light, and protect your heart with wisdom. For not everyone deserves your kindness, but the right people at the right time will see it, honor it, and let it change them forever. When you step back and look at life through the eyes of wisdom, you realize kindness is not just an act, it is energy, and energy is life. If you spend your life scattering it in places where it is crushed, mocked, or wasted, your soul begins to dim. But if you choose carefully where you plant it, your heart flourishes, and so does everything around you. There is both excitement and fear in that truth, because it reminds us that every act of kindness is a seed that either grows into a garden or turns into weeds that choke the spirit. The greatest wisdom is knowing that not everyone who smiles at you has earned the right to hold your trust. The strongest motivation comes from realizing that your heart is not an endless fountain. It is a sacred vessel that must be guarded. Even psychology confirms this. When you give to people who value you, your brain strengthens joy, but when you pour yourself into those who abuse it, your body responds with stress, your mind with fatigue, and your spirit with quiet despair. You are not called to be endlessly drained. You are called to live with power wrapped in grace. There is soul psychology in this journey. When you give to those who truly deserve it, your inner self feels light, your nights feel restful, and your spirit feels connected to something divine. But when you give to those who misuse it, your body stiffens, your sleep breaks, and your purpose feels lost. That is the silent warning life gives you, urging you to step back, urging you to protect the sacred flame inside. So stand with courage. Let your kindness remain fierce, but never foolish. Let your heart remain open, but not unguarded. Be the kind of soul who touches lives with truth, not just empty generosity. Protecting your heart does not make you cold, it makes you wise. Protecting your heart does not make you selfish, it makes you strong enough to love in ways that last. Protecting your heart means you finally understand that the divine spark inside you is never meant to be wasted on hands that only know how to break it. And when people look at you years from now, they will not see someone who is always drained, always used, always broken. They will see a person whose kindness carried weight, whose boundaries carried strength, and whose life carried meaning. That is the destiny of a heart that knows when to give, when to stop, and when to rise above.